Hello, most beautiful people. Happy Wednesday. Hopefully, everybody's feeling okay. If anybody was celebrating for St. Patty's, getting a little wild and crazy, well, hopefully, you're not feeling it too hard today. And welcome. Let me hit a sound check. And today, we already know today we had to work for it hard yesterday. So today, not that's not how it's going down today. Not a chance. But it still ended up coming together pretty swell in the long run, so we love that. Okay, there he is. Mic check. Testing. Come on. Okay. Nice. It's working good. Okay, there he is. Awesome. Okay, so the sound check. The vibes. 1 second. I'll get the music playing. But welcome. I will say welcome until we get that music playing. This is Jay Baldell. Welcome to my channel. Oh, come on. We already did a sound check. That's okay. Sometimes that's how it goes. This is Jay Baldell. Welcome to my channel. Much love to you all. If you're new and you end up enjoying this content, then please hit a like, share, and subscribe. And thank you for doing so. Okay, there we go. Music check. Chat check. Greeting check. Nice. We're off to a smooth start today. Okay. So, I got just a tiny yap for you before we start today. Because I just want to hit you guys with the reminder that I mean I know most of you know, but because I get new people popping in here steadily enough that a lot of this being plopped in your lap is just to stress the importance of doing this research, especially into texts like this one, Éliphas Lévi, which is a pretty foundational text as far as magic and esotericism, the occult, and all that goes. Welcome into those of you just coming in. And so, if you do that, I feel, at least I feel, because I know it's been true for myself and for other people I know, that if you do invest that, you really will see that, you just need to be patient, give yourself the time and space, research into the things, and you'll figure it out just fine on your own. Because there really honestly is a lot of bad information that goes around online. And if we go to that mechanic thing again, a lot of people just don't know any better. So say you do go watch like some mechanic influencer out there you really like. I don't know. There's got to be one. There's an influencer for god darn near everything at this point. But say this mechanic influencer is like, I don't know, teaching and showing a bunch of things that you, who doesn't know any better, is like, man, this is amazing. I'm really learning a lot. This is great. I feel like I could work on anybody's car. And it even inspires you to go get a job at a shop. But then you get in there and all the guys are like, what are you doing? And you're trying to say like, hey man, I know what I'm doing. I learned online. Come on. And they start laughing at you and being like, well, who'd you learn from? And then it comes to light that they're like, oh yeah, we know about that guy. A lot of mechanic people know about that guy. He's just BSing. For whatever reason, he finds it funny, or he feeds his ego in the way of he gets on and just teaches a bunch of like things wrong. And maybe he just doesn't even know himself. Hard to say. But are you gonna at that point like get upset and look at these actual mechanics in this actual shop and be like, you guys don't know because so and so says? Or are you gonna just maybe actually take this opportunity to realize now you are in the presence of actual experts and learn? So that's why I stress also seeking out some of these groups, especially like the AA, because that one especially, you really have to prove yourself in order to advance in the system, as opposed to other ones where you can kind of LARP a bit more and still get by. And there's just a lot of LARPing going on out here, and a lot of, like, I have friends who will share content with me, and it's like, it's not about being right or wrong, it as much as it's just about, like, not wanting people to buy into complete and total BS. You know what I mean? I'm sure you guys know. I don't. It's the choir over here preaching to, but we do have these new people up in here. So, yeah, that's why I think it's important to go to a lot of these texts that some of these people that's what a lot of this content is from. Is these people will read something and then they'll go make some viral thing. And sometimes it is legit, and other times not really so much, not at all, even, or barely. And so this gives us all an opportunity together as a group, as a community. Welcome into those you just coming in, speaking of which, um, to just see for ourselves. But I say that also to say this, that we don't want to risk getting obsessed with just the occult and esotericism, whether it's magic, whether it's yoga, whatever, because that is a big risk as well, that you go about it in this obsessed way where you're just consuming content, and you're not actually using it the way it's meant to be used, which is to enhance your life. So we can go back to that mechanic thing, because if you actually are learning that, then guess what? Now you can fix all your own cars. You can fix your friends and family's cars, your neighbors' cars. You can maybe even at a certain point open up a shop yourself, right? But not right away, because you watched a few reels and think now you've got it all figured out. This is after, I'm talking years and years and years and years of actually applying this in your life, actually seeing results, actually bettering your life with it, making a difference in your life, in other people's lives. So hey, there's the bit of yap today. Hopefully you find it helpful. And I appreciate you all very much, because I know some of you do. And I appreciate those of you who let me know you do. And for the rest of you, well, hard to know, I guess, if you don't let me know one way or another. I mean, even if you don't, I don't mind hearing it. If you're like, yo, man, you are totally out of pocket, you are on some ridiculousness, then hey, let me know, man, because I would love to have those kinds of conversations, because that's how we better ourselves in the long run. All right, so let's bust out this tarot and let's get to pulling. Gotta make myself a little room here. That ought to do it, but then we'll scoot it back in a sec. Okay, so let's shuff this up. So, and yesterday I got a little ahead of myself too in the book. I forgot there's another introduction to the grimoire or the ritual half of the book. So we'll actually read that today. And then when we pick back up with this class next week, we will then get into the book proper. We will get into the first section on Monday, which is going to be pretty swell. But the intro today is actually so fire. It's just so good. It's one of those ones that I probably would just highlight the whole thing. Honestly, it's great. But you'll see in a moment. In the meantime, let's see what the tarot wants us to keep in mind as we go into that and as we go about our day. And don't let yourself think that any and all of this is too hard, because I get that we are in an age of content and information, and so people do get these kind of obsessions over different topics. We can take spirituality completely out of it. People out there are fascinated by all kinds of things, so they consume the content on those kinds of things, whether it's science, whether it's, oh, well, we got a jumper today. We'll do that then. We've had one that's been trying to peek out. Maybe that's been the one the whole time. Whether it's science, whether it's whatever, gardening. But I think a lot of people will just sit and consume that because it helps them pass the time. It is very intriguing, very fascinating, all of that. But then they don't like do anything with it. And it's not that that's like completely wrong, but why wouldn't you? I mean, if this is something that you really feel interested in, inspired by, then why wouldn't you try to conduct maybe more easy at home type of science experiments? Why wouldn't you try to grow your own plants, purchase some plants, try to get a green thumb, maybe try to grow some herbs, some fruits, some veggies, whatever? I know it can be a little hard. I get people live in places that some of that stuff might be a bit hard, but it's still not entirely impossible. So that's why I really do stress a lot of the do this stuff, like really do this stuff, because I know for sure that even if it hasn't been an overnight process, when I look at me, where I was before I ever got into any kind of spiritual path, and especially even before I got magic thrown into that part of the spiritual path versus now, it has made tremendous improvements. You know what I mean? It has caused me to enhance my life in many different ways. And so I know that's true for a lot of people. Okay, well, with that being said, let's peel into this card a bit. So we got 10 cups today. 10 Malkuth in the world of Bria, the creative world, the archangel world. And in this particular one, the cups are filled. Satiety, the Lord of Satiety. So everybody's cup is full. And maybe that was last night on St. Patty's. You were at the bar and everybody's cup was full. Maybe that's today and what you've got going on, whether it's in this more imaginal realm, or whether it is in Malkuth, because we see both of those represented here. And so, however that's coming to be true in your life. We also have Mars again. We had Mars yesterday. This card is Mars again. Mars in Pisces, though. Pisces, the dreamer. Pisces, the best of the best. We love you, Pisces. And it is Pisces season, so we can keep that in mind too. So this energy is abundant right now, apparently. Mars too. I know we've got some warfare going on in the world, but from warfare, still from destruction comes creation, and it sucks. The waste of human life is pretty absurd. So things like warfare we could probably do without, but when in the long run, a lot of times we see that it serves some kind of purpose, even if it might not be. I don't we won't get way too off into all that. But we do see the tree of life represented here in this card. So it could also just be the way that you are coming to better understand things like the tree of life, things like magic and spirituality, and how to take it from this imaginal realm and bring it down into Malkuth, ultimately to fill your cup and fill the cups of those in your life. Cool. That's our reading. That's our tarot today. And it looks like the stream is still going strong. So we love that, because I didn't even realize I was yapping on the tarot yesterday and it was like not recording and all that. So that's why we ended up with 3 streams, 2 of which we've got up and still went together pretty swell. But that first one, we're just not going to worry about that one because it didn't do much for anybody. All right, and we've got Yay Tapes. What up, bro? Says, find God. Don't come back until you find God. Jesus is King. All praise to God. Jesus is Lord. Yay Tapes. See, if you came in here and actually took the time to pay attention to what's going on in here instead of just running your mouth, you would find out just how silly you are. Yay Tapes. Yay Tapes like Kanye. Well, you and Kanye have one thing in common. You like to blabber off without, well, hey, sorry, Yay Tapes. Appreciate you, Yay Tapes. Appreciate your contribution. Trust me, bro. That's exactly what we're doing on this channel. All right. Speaking of which, let's get into our book study. This intro is a little bit shorter than the other one, and luckily it doesn't have as gnarly of footnotes. Boy, Edward Waite. So those footnotes are Edward Waite, but that intro itself was Éliphas Lévi. Oh, and here again we have the image of the sabbatic goat. I'm gonna flip to the front real quick and see what the note on that is, especially for you, Yay Tapes. Let's see exactly what he's got to say about that one. Okay, nice. Hang on, I better put my bookmark back real quick. Okay, so he says, the sabbatic goat, the Baphomet of Mendes, a pantheistic and magical figure of the absolute. Oh wait, you mean that's an image of God, yay tapes? Wow. Couldn't wow, that couldn't be. No way. That just couldn't be in your world. But it hate to break it to you, fam. The torch placed between the two horns represents the equilibrating intelligence of the triad. The goat's head, which is synthetic and unites some characteristics of the dog, bull, and ass, represents the exclusive responsibility of matter and the expiation of bodily sins in the body. The hands are human to exhibit the sanctity of labor. They make the sign of esotericism above and below to impress mystery on initiates, and they point at two lunar crescents, the upper being white and the lower black, to explain the correspondences of good and evil, mercy and justice. The lower part of the body is veiled, portraying mysteries of universal generation, which is expressed solely by the symbol of the caduceus. The belly of the goat is scaled and should be colored green. The semicircle above should be blue. The plumage reaching to the breast should be of various hues. The goat has female breasts, and thus its only human characteristics are those of maternity and toil. Otherwise, the signs of redemption. On its forehead, between the horns and beneath the torch, is the sign of the microcosm, or the pentagram, with one point in the ascendant, symbol of human intelligence, which placed thus below the torch makes the flame of the latter an image of divine revelation. This pantheistic figure should be seated on a cube, and its footstool should be a single ball on a ball and a triangular stool. Oh, yeah, okay. In our design, we have given the former only to avoid complicating the figure. Sick. Okay. Well, no wonder you're so scared of that image because y'all are also so scared of the book of Revelation, a book that you just clearly don't understand. That's all right. It's a hard one. And this is the symbol of that. Oh, spooky. All right, everybody. Let's do it. So, introduction to the ritual section or the grimoire. Knowest thou that old queen of the world who is on the march always and wearies never? Every uncurbed passion, every selfish pleasure, every licentious energy of humanity, and all its tyrannous weakness go before the sordid mistress of our tearful valley, and scythe in hand, these indefatigable laborers reap their eternal harvest. That queen is old as time, but her skeleton is concealed in the wreckage of women's beauty which she abstracts from their youth and love. Her skull is adorned with lifeless tresses that are not her own. Spoliator of crowned heads, she is embellished with the plunder of queens. From the star begemmed hair of Bernice to that white, but not with age, which the executioner sheared from the brow of Marie Antoinette. Her livid and frozen body is clothed in faded garments and tattered winding sheets. Her bony hands, covered with rings, hold diadems and chains, scepters and crossbones, jewels and ashes. When she goes by, doors open of themselves. She passes through walls. She penetrates to the cabinets of kings. She surprises the extortioners of the poor in their most secret orgies. She sits down at their board, pours out their wine, grins at their songs with her gumless teeth, takes the place of the lecherous courtesan hidden behind the curtains. She delights to hover about sleeping voluptuaries. She seeks their caresses as if she hoped to grow warm in their embrace. But she freezes all those whom she touches, and herself never kindles. At times, notwithstanding, one would think her seized with frenzy. She stalks slowly no longer. She runs. If her feet are too slow, she spurs a pale horse and charges all breathless through multitudes. Murder rides with her on a russet charger, shaking his mane of smoke. Fire flies before her with wings of scarlet and black. Famine and plague follow on diseased and emaciated steeds, gleaning the few sheaves which remain to complete her harvest. After this funeral procession come two little children, radiating with smiles and life, the intelligence and love of the coming century, the dual genius of a newborn humanity. The shadows of death fold up before them, as does night before the morning star. With nimble feet they skim the earth and sow with full hands the hope of another year. But death will come no more, impitious and terrible, to mow like dry grass the ripe blades of a new age. It will give place to the angel of progress, who will gently liberate souls from mortal chains, so that they may ascend to God. When men know how to live, they will die no longer. They will transform like the chrysalis, which becomes a splendid butterfly. The terrors of death are daughters of ignorance, and death herself is only hideous by reason of the rubbish which covers her, and the somber hues with which her images are surrounded. Death truly is the birth pang of life. There is a force in nature which dieth not, and this force perpetually transforms beings to preserve them. It is the reason or word of nature. In man also there is a force analogous to that of nature, and it is the reason or word of man. The word of man is the expression of his will directed by reason, and it is omnipotent under this leading, for it is analogous to the word of God himself. How you like that one, yay tapes? By the word of his reason, man becomes conqueror of life and can triumph over death. The entire life of man is either the parturition or miscarriage of his word. Human beings who die without having understood or formulated the word of reason die devoid of eternal hope. To withstand successfully the phantom of death, we must be identified with the realities of life. Right there. Check that out. To withstand successfully the phantom of death, we must be identified with the realities of life. Yep. So continue checking out some more, huh? Continue escaping some more. Continue not engaging with the world around you some more. How's it working out for you? Does it signify to God if an abortion wither, seeing that life is eternal? Does it signify to nature if unreason perish, since reason, which never perishes, still holds the keys of life? The just and terrible force which destroys abortions eternally was called by the Hebrews Samael, by other Easterns Satan, and by the Latins Lucifer. The Lucifer of the Kabbalah is not an accursed and ruined angel. He is the angel who enlightens, who regenerates by fire. He is to the angels of peace what the comet is to the mild stars of the springtime constellations. The fixed star is beautiful, radiant, and calm. She drinks the celestial perfumes and gazes with love upon her sisters. Clothed in her glittering robe, her forehead crowned with diamonds, she smiles as she chants her morning and evening canticle. She enjoys an eternal repose which nothing can disturb, and moves solemnly forward without departing from the rank assigned her among the sentinels of light. But the wandering comet, disheveled and of sanguinary aspect, plunges hurriedly from the depths of heaven and flings herself athwart the peaceful spheres, like a chariot of war between the ranks of a procession of vestals. She dares to face the burning spears of the solar guardians, and, like a bereft spouse who seeks the husband of her dreams during widowed nights, she penetrates even unto the inmost sanctuary of the God of day. Again she escapes, exhaling the fires which consume her and trailing a long conflagration behind. The stars pale at her approach. Constellate flocks, pasturing on flowers of light in the vast meadows of the sky, seem to be before her terrible breath. The grand council of spheres assembles, and there is universal consternation. At length, the loveliest of the fixed stars is commissioned to speak in the name of all the firmament and offer peace to the headlong vagabond. My sister, she thus commences. Oh, one true God, what up? Says popping in to say hi, but catching the stream later. Well, hey, always great to see you, and no worries at all. This one's, you're going to enjoy this one when you catch it on the replay. I hope you're having such a wonderful day. Okay. My sister, she thus commences. Why dost thou disturb the harmony of the spheres? What evil have we wrought thee? And why, instead of wandering wildly, dost thou not fix thy place like us in the court of the sun? Why dost thou not chant with us the evening hymn, clothed like ourselves in a white garment fastened at the breast with a diamond clasp? Why float thy tresses, adrip with fiery sweat, through the mists of the night? Ah, wouldst thou but take thy place among the daughters of heaven, how much more beautiful wouldst thou be? Thy face would burn no longer with the toil of thine incredible flights. Thine eyes would be clear, thy smiling countenance white and red like that of thy happy sisters. All the stars would know thee, and, far from fearing thy flight, would rejoice at thine approach. For then thou wouldst be made one with us by the indestructible bonds of universal harmony. And thy peaceful existence would be one voice more in the canticle of infinite love. And the comet replies to the fixed star: Believe not, O my sister, that I am permitted to wander at will and vex the harmony of the spheres. God hath appointed my path even as thine, and if it appear to thee uncertain and vagrant, it is because thy beams cannot penetrate far enough to take in the circumference of the ellipse which has been allotted for my course. How you like that one, yay tapes? My fiery hair, he's long gone. That's all they do. That's all these people do. They pop in, think they're hitting you with something profound, think they're really saying something, and then they leave. If they really were about trying to make a difference, then they would stick around and really, really try to set a good example. But he's probably listening to he's probably going and checking Kanye's Twitter and who knows what else. He's all right anyway. My fiery hair is God's beacon. I am the messenger of the suns, and I renew my strength continually in their burning heart, that I may dispense it on my journey to young worlds which have as yet insufficient warmth, and to ancient stars which have grown cold in their solitude. If I weary in my long travelings, if my beauty be less mild than thine own, and if my garments are not unspotted, yet am I a noble daughter of heaven, even as thou art. Leave me the secret of my terrible destiny. Leave me the dread which surrounds me. Curse me, even if thou canst not comprehend. I shall none the less accomplish my work and continue my career under the impulse of the breath of God. Happy are the stars which rest, which shine like youthful queens in the peaceful society of the universe. I am the proscribed, the eternal wanderer who has infinity for domain. They accuse me of setting fire to the planets, the heat of which I renew. They accuse me of terrifying the stars which I enlighten. They chide me with breaking in upon universal harmony, because I do not revolve about their particular centers, though I join them one with another, directing my gaze toward the soul center of all the suns. Be reassured, therefore, O beauteous fixed star, I shall not impoverish thy peaceful light. Rather, I shall expend in thy service my own life and heat. I shall disappear from heaven when I shall have consumed myself, and my doom will have been glorious enough. Know that the various fires burn in the temple of God, and do all give him glory. Yea, are the light of golden Candelabra. And I said yay because of the yeah Kanye, not meant to be ye because it's English in that way. Ye are the light of golden candelabra. I am the flame of sacrifice. Let us each fulfill our destinies. Having uttered these words, the comet tosses back her burning hair, uplifts her fiery shield, and plunges into infinite space, seeming to be lost forever. Thus Satan appeared and disappeared in the allegorical narratives of the Bible. Now there was a day, says the book of Job, when the sons of God came to present themselves before the Lord, and Satan came also among them. And the Lord said unto Satan, Whence comest thou? Then Satan answered the Lord and said, From going to and fro in the earth, and from walking up and down in it. A Gnostic gospel, discovered in the East by a learned traveler of our acquaintance, explains the genesis of light to the prophet of Lucifer as follows. And this footnote says, in the text of Éliphas Lévi, owing to his confused arrangement, it is impossible to say where this alleged quotation ends. The point at which I have closed it is quite speculative. And actually, I'm going to take a quick sec to put on some colder air, because it is a warm day. Nope, not that switch. Okay, that ought to do it. And a lot of so I'll say real quick too that the reason I'll say some of the things I'll say, have said, and I guess kind of continue to say is it goes into one, the golden rule of treat others as you'd like to be treated. And it would have been way cool. I know for me, as somebody who's already got a lot of years on the belt, swimming around, doing this, researching this, that it would have been way more beneficial if more than like one person, literally, I know, was like giving me a heads up, being like, yo, man, a lot of these people are just straight up on some grift. Like, I mean, some of them are better than others, sure, but even still, the majority of these people are just straight up grifting. Um, and I get it. Some of us don't want to hear it. We plus in the West, in America especially, the U.S. as well as Canada and Mexico, we really tend to do the celebrity thing, to putting people up on pedestals. But to me, that just seems really silly that you would come into something like this and then still like do the celebrity thing, like either for yourself if you're in that position, or for the people who prop those people up. Like, it's one thing to be grateful and to really be like, hey man, you've helped me a lot, thank you so much. um and if that person has like a cash app or whatever, and you feel like you want to express your gratitude in that type of way, well, that's a whole different thing than people who are just straight up like, here's my next course, oh, and here's my next course, and oh, and here's my other course, and guess what, you had to take all these other courses to lead into this course, and it's just a multi-level marketing scheme, honestly. um but whatever, you know what I mean? Because what this thing here is saying, and a lot of this new Aeon stuff, is why I don't care to beat a dead horse about it. Like, I do want to try to treat others the way I'd like to be treated, and try to give people a heads up and help people to improve things like their discernment, their critical thinking. But still, at the end of the day, I don't want to beat a dead horse, like I said. And so, and also, I get that this new Aeon energy is a bit more about letting people figure it out on their own, letting people go through these mistakes. And maybe it's not mistakes to some people. To some people, it probably is very beneficial. But to other people who are maybe going to take a good hard look at it and be like, you know what? Yeah, I got that was kind of a waste of time and money. Um, and hey, some of these people, that's why I say pay attention too. If you just pay attention to these people, you'll realize they even know it too, but some of them are just better at saving face than others. So we got some slick talkers out here, but that doesn't mean there's still not some that are pretty good and pretty helpful and still meaning well, as opposed to others who are just, oh boy, oh boy. But with that being said, let's get into this, because this just keeps getting better and better. I promise you that. Self-conscious truth is living thought. Truth is thought as it is in itself, and formulated thought is speech. When eternal thought desired a form, it said, let there be light. Now, and especially from this part, pretty much the whole rest of this intro is just like I could have just highlighted the whole thing. I mean, I could have really already highlighted this whole last bit too. Um, but if anything, I should that way if anybody else ever comes into contact with this book, they'll be like, hey, okay, so this must be important. They star this section. Okay, when eternal thought desired a form, it said, let there be light. Now, this thought which speaks is the word, and the word said, let there be light, because the word itself is the light of minds. The uncreated light, which is the divine word, shines because it desires to be seen. When it says, let there be light, it ordains that eyes shall open. It creates intelligences. When God said, let there be light, intelligence was made, and the light appeared. Now, the intelligence which God diffused by the breath of his mouth, like a star given off from the sun, took the form of a splendid angel, who was saluted by heaven under the name of Lucifer. Intelligence awakened and comprehended its nature completely by the understanding of that utterance of the divine word, let there be light. It felt itself to be free because God had called it into being, and raising up its head with both wings extended, it replied, I will not be slavery. Then shalt thou be suffering, said the uncreated voice. I will be liberty, replied the light. Pride will seduce thee, said the supreme voice, and thou wilt bring forth death. I needs must strive with death to conquer life. Again responded the created light. Thereupon God loosed from his bosom the shining cord which restrained the superb angel, and beholding him plunge through the night, which he furrowed with glory, he loved the offspring of his thought, and said with an ineffable smile, how beautiful was the light. God has not created suffering. Intelligence has accepted it to be free. And suffering has been the condition imposed upon freedom of being by him who alone cannot err, because he is infinite. For the essence of intelligence is judgment, and the essence of judgment is liberty. The eye does not really possess light except by the faculty of closing or opening. Were it forced to be always open, it would be the slave and victim of the light, and would cease to see in order to escape the torment. Thus, created intelligence is not happy in affirming God, except by its liberty to deny him. Now, the intelligence which denies invariably affirms something, since it is asserting its liberty. It is for this reason that blasphemy glorifies God and that hell was indispensable to the happiness of heaven. Were the light unrepelled by shadow, there would be no visible forms. If the first angels had not encountered the depths of darkness, the childbirth of God would have been incomplete, and there could have been no separation between the created and essential light. Never would intelligence have known the goodness of God if it had never lost him. Never would God's infinite love have shone forth in the joys of his mercy had the prodigal Son of heaven remained in the house of his Father. When all was light, there was light nowhere. It filled the breast of God who was laboring to bring it forth. And when he said, let there be light, he permitted the darkness to repel the light, and the universe issued from chaos. The negation of the angel who at birth refused slavery constituted the equilibrium of the world, and the motion of the spheres commenced. The infinite distances admired this love of liberty, which was vast enough to fill the void of eternal night and strong enough to bear the hatred of God. But God could not hate, or God could hate not the noblest of his children. And he proved him by his wrath only to confirm him in his power. So also the word of God himself, as if jealous of Lucifer, willed to come down from heaven and pass triumphantly through the shadows of hell. He willed to be proscribed and condemned. He permitted that terrible hour when he should cry, in the throes of his agony, my God, why hast thou forsaken me? As the star of the morning goes before the sun, the rebellion of Lucifer announced to newborn nature the coming incarnation of God. Possibly Lucifer, in his fall through night, carried with him a rain of suns and stars by the attraction of his glory. Possibly our sun is a demon among the stars, as Lucifer is a star among the angels. Doubtless it is for this reason that it lights so calmly the horrible anguish of humanity and the long agony of earth, because it is free in its solitude and possesses its light. Such were the tendencies of the heresiarchs in the early centuries. Some, like the Ophites, adored the demon under the figure of a serpent. Others, like the Cainites, justified the rebellion of the first angel and that of the first murderer. All those errors, all those shadows, all those monstrous idols of anarchy which India poses in its symbols to be the magical Trimurti have found priests and worshippers in Christianity. The demon is mentioned nowhere in Genesis. All allegorical serpent deceives, an allegorical serpent deceives our first parents. Here is the common translation of the sacred text. Now, the serpent was more subtle than any beast of the field which the Lord God had made. But this is what Moses says. And then there's this Hebrew passage here. Um, I don't know. I definitely can't read all of that. I know we've got. Well, he goes into it a little bit more. If you can read that, then hit us with what it says in English. I guess I could Google it, but not right now. This signifies, according to the version of Fabre d'Olivet, now original attraction. Cupidity was the entraining passion of all elementary life, the interior activity of nature, the work of Jehovah, the being of beings. But herein, Fabre d'Olivet is beside the true interpretation because he was unacquainted with the grand keys of the Kabbalah. The word Nahash, explained by the symbolical letters of the tarot, signifies rigorously. Noon, 14, the power which produces combinations. Hey, 5, the recipient and passive producer of forms. Sheen, 21, the natural and central fire equilibrated by double polarization. Thus, the word employed by Moses, read Kabbalistically, gives the description and definition of that magical universal agent represented in all theogonies by the serpent. To this agent, the Hebrews applied the name of Od when it manifested its active force, of Ob when it exhibited its passive force, and of Aur when it revealed itself wholly in its equilibrated power, as producer of light in heaven and gold among metals. Okay, and that footnote says, compare on this subject the following extracts from Le Grand Arcane of the second edition. The astral light or great agent of life was called Od, Ob, and Or by the Hebrews. Magnetism directed by the will of the operator is Od. Passive somnambulism is Ob. This dual action is represented by the serpents of the caduceus. The serpent on the right is Od, that on the left is Ob, and in the center, at the summit of the Hermetic wand, there shines the golden globe, which represents Aur, or equilibrated light. Od represents life in its free direction, and Ob, fatal life. The whole secret of magnetism consists in ruling the fatality of Ob by the intelligence and power of Od, in order to create the perfect equilibrium of Aur. Pretty sick. And get you motivated. What's up? Oh, sweet. Thank you for the help. Says loose translation via Google. And the serpent was more cunning than any beast of the field which God had made. Okay, so that's just the way it's written in Hebrew. Awesome, man. Thank you for your help looking that up. All right. It is therefore that old serpent which encircles the world and places its devouring head beneath the foot of a virgin. The type of initiation, that virgin who presents a little newborn child to the adoration of 3 magi and receives from them in exchange for this favor gold, myrrh, and frankincense. So does doctrine serve in all hieratic religions to veil the secret of natural forces which the initiate has at his disposal. Religious formulae are the summaries of those words full of mystery and power which make the gods descend from heaven and become subject to the will of men. Judea borrowed its secrets from Egypt. Greece sent her hierophants and later her theosophists to the school of the great prophets. The Rome of the Caesars, mined by the initiation of the catacombs, collapsed one day into the church, and a symbolism was reconstructed with the remnants of all worships, which had been absorbed by the queen of the world. According to the gospel narrative, the inscription which set forth the spiritual royalty of Christ was written in Hebrew, in Greek, and in Latin. It was the expression of a universal synthesis. Hellenism, in fact, that grand and beauteous religion of form, announced the coming of the Savior no less than the prophets of Judaism. The fable of Psyche is an ultra-Christian abstraction, and the cultists of the pantheons, by rehabilitating Socrates, prepared altars for that unity of God, of which Israel had been the mysterious preserver. But the synagogue denied its Messiah, and the Hebrew letters were effaced, at least for the blinded eyes of the Jews. The Roman persecutors dishonored Hellenism, and it could not be restored by the false moderation of the philosopher Julian, surnamed perhaps unjustly the apostate, since his Christianity was never sincere. The ignorance of the Middle Ages followed, opposing saints and virgins to gods, goddesses, and nymphs. The deep sense of the Hellenic mysteries was less understood than ever. Greece herself did not only lose the traditions of her ancient cultus, but separated from the Latin Church, and thus, for Latinized, the Greek letters were blotted out. As the Latin letters disappeared for Greek eyes, so the inscription on the cross of the Savior vanished entirely, and nothing except mysterious initials remained. But when science and philosophy, reconciled with faith, shall unite all the various symbols, then shall the magnificences of the antique worships be restored to the memory of men, proclaiming the progress of the human mind in the intuition of the light of God. But of all forms of progress, the greatest will be that which, restoring the keys of nature to the hands of science, shall enchain forever the hideous spectre of Satan, and, explaining all abnormal phenomena, shall destroy the empire of superstition and imbecile credulity. To the accomplishment of this work we have consecrated our life, and do still devote it in the most toilsome and difficult researches. We would emancipate altars by overthrowing idols. We desire the man of intelligence to become once more the priest and king of nature, and we would preserve by explanation all images of the universal sanctuary. The prophets spoke in parables and images because abstract language was wanting to them, and because prophetic perception, being the sentiment of harmony or of universal analogies, translates naturally into images. Taken literally by the vulgar, these images become idols or impenetrable mysteries. The sum and succession of such images and mysteries constitute what God called symbolism. Symbolism comes therefore from God, though it may be formulated by men. Revelation has accompanied humanity in all ages, has been transfigured with human genius, but has never expressed the same truth. True religion is one, its dogmas are simple and within the reach of all. At the same time, the multiplicity of symbols has been a book of poesy indispensable to the education of human genius. The harmony of outward beauties and the poetry of form must reveal God to the infancy of man. But soon Venus had Psyche for her rival, and Psyche enchanted love. It came about, therefore, that the cultus of form yielded perforce to those ambitious dreams which adorned already the eloquent wisdom of Plato. Thus was the advent of Christ prepared and was therefore also expected. It arrived because the world awaited it. And to become popular, philosophy transformed into belief. Emancipated by belief itself, the human mind protested speedily against the school which sought to materialize its signs in the work of Roman Catholicism, was solely an undesigned provision for the emancipation of consciences and the establishment of the basis of universal association. All these things were the regular and normal development of divine life in humanity. For God is the great soul of all souls, that immovable center about which gravitate all intelligences like a cloud of stars. God is the necessary hypothesis with which all certitudes are bound up. Human understanding has had its morning, its noon shall come, and the waning follow. But God will be ever the same. It seems, however, to dwellers on earth that the sun rises youthful and timid in the morning, shines with all its power at midday, and goes wearied to rest in the evening. Nevertheless, it is earth which revolves while the sun is motionless. Having faith, therefore, in human progress and in the stability of God, the free man respects religion in its past forms, and no more blasphemes Jupiter than Jehovah. He still salutes lovingly the radiant image of the Pythian Apollo, and discovers its fraternal resemblance to the glorified countenance of the risen Redeemer. He believes in the great mission of the Catholic hierarchy and finds satisfaction in observing the popes of the Middle Ages who opposed religion as a check upon the absolute power of kings. But he protests with the revolutionary centuries against the servitude of conscience which the pontifical keys would enchain. He is more Protestant than Luther, since he does not even believe in the infallibility of the Augsburg Confession, and more Catholic than the Pope, for he has no fear that religious unity will be broken by the malevolence of courts. He trusts in God rather than Roman policy for the salvation of the unity idea. He respects the old age of the church, but he has no fear that she will die. He knows that her apparent death will be a transfiguration and a glorious assumption. All right, I need a little bit of water. And something else important to keep in mind, um, in that whole trying to find the equanimity, the equilibrium, the happy place where you pursue spiritual things, you pursue God, but in a way that you don't just reject the real world, which again, right, we can knock on this. It's pretty real. It's pretty real. We can all agree on just how real it is, but we can't all agree on how real God is, or at least in the same ways, because here's the thing. Religion could go away, and it would always come back. Man will always seek that divine thing, but it will always come back different. Whereas science will always come back and come back the same. So really, at what point are we just escaping way too much? Are we just checking completely out? Are we just off in astral la la land trying to just I don't know, be the wizard rather than actually using this in a way that betters both things realistically, that still does have its advantages in that realm, but also has its advantages in this realm. You know what I mean? What was it Einstein said about religion without science and science without religion? I don't remember the exact quote, but he said something about how basically they need to go hand in hand, that it's foolish to just go all the way into one or all the way into the other, at least if you really want to do things the way they're meant to be done. Okay. The author of this book calls upon the Eastern Magi to come forward and recognize once again that divine master whose cradle they saluted. Okay, yeah, and from this part through the rest of this intro, a few more pages, it's just extra fire. It's just, oh my goodness. All right. All his enemies have fallen, and all those who condemned him are dead. Those who persecuted him have passed into sleep forever, but he is forever alive. And that footnote says, Christ is priest and king by intelligence and love. He has received holy unction, unction of genius, unction of faith, unction of virtue, which is force. He comes when the priesthood is exhausted, when the old symbols have lost their virtue, when the realm of intelligence is extinct. He comes calling back Israel to life, and if he cannot revivify Israel, killed by Pharisees, he resuscitates the world abandoned to the dead worship of idols. Christ is the right of duty. That one's from La Clef des Grands Mysteries. And again, Christ is living duty, protesting eternally against imaginary right. He is the liberation of the spirit, bursting the bonds of flesh. He is self-devotion in revolt against egoism. Okay. The envious have combined against him, agreeing on a single point. The sectaries have united to destroy him. They have crowned themselves kings and proscribed him. They have become hypocrites and accused him. They have constituted themselves judges and pronounced his sentence of death. They have turned murderers and executed him. They have forced him to drink hemlock. They have crucified him. They have stoned him. They have burned him and cast his ashes to the wind. They have turned scarlet with terror, for he stands erect before them, impeaching them by his wounds and overwhelming them by the radiance of his scars. They believed that they had slain him in his cradle at Bethlehem, but he is alive in Egypt. They carry him to the summit of the mountain to cast him down. The mob of his destroyers encircles him and triumphs already in his certain destruction. A cry is heard. Is not that he who is shattered on the rocks of the abyss? They whiten and look at one another, but he, calm and smiling with pity, passes through the midst of them and disappears. Behold, another mountain which they have just dyed with his blood. Behold, a cross, a sepulchre, and soldiers guarding his tomb. Madmen, the tomb is empty, and he whom they regard as dead is walking peaceably between two travelers on the road to Emoi. Where is he? Whither does he go? Warn the masters of the world. Tell the Caesars that their power is threatened. By whom? By a pauper who has no stone on which to lay his head. By a man of the people condemned to the death of slaves. What insult or what madness? It matters not. The Caesars marshal all their power. Sanguinary edicts prescribe the fugitive. Everywhere scaffolds rise up, amphitheaters open, crowded with lions and gladiators. Pyres are lighted, torrents of blood flow, and the Caesars, believing themselves victorious, dare add another name to those they rehearse on their trophies. Then they die, and their own apotheosis dishonors the gods whom they defended. The hatred of the world confounds Jupiter and Nero in a common contempt. Temples transformed into tombs are cast down over proscribed ashes, and above the debris of idols, above ruins of empires, he only, he whom the Caesars indicted, whom so many satellites pursued, whom so many executioners tortured, he only lives, alone reigns, alone triumphs. And Chicano, what up? Survivor Scrolls, straight up, dude. Welcome, always great to see you. Okay, and the footnote on all that says, there are so-called wise men who tell you that Christianity is in its death throes and that the world of Jesus Christ is becoming rapidly a thing of the past. It is the old world which is expiring. It is idolatry that is passing away. The gospel has been merely published. It has not reigned on earth. Catholicity, or the universality of a single religion, is still a principle only and is regarded as an utopia by many. But principles are not utopias. They are stronger than nations and kings, more durable than empires, more stable than words. From La Science d'Esprit. Yeah, and I'll tell you straight up, the very best witches I know, like actual witches, don't, well, okay, I know one who says just get that Christian stuff away from me and is still a pretty solid witch, but all the rest of them, and well, and even still uses Catholic saints. So even if they, I don't know, kind of hate some of the Christian mysticism, and it's like you still call upon Catholic saints, you still work with angels, you know what I mean? Um, like, but do thou will. I'm just saying though. Notwithstanding, his own disciples speedily misuse his name. Pride enters the sanctuary. Those who should proclaim his resurrection seek to immortalize his death, that they may feed like ravens on his ever renewing flesh. In place of imitating him in his sacrifice and shedding their blood for their children in the faith, they chain him in the Vatican as upon another Caucasus, and become the vultures of this divine Prometheus. But what signifies their evil dream? They can only imprison his image. He himself is free and erect, proceeding from exile to exile and from conquest to conquest. It is possible to bind a man, but not to make captive the word of God. Speech is free, and nothing can repress it. This living speech is the condemnation of the wicked, and hence they seek to destroy it. But it is they only who die, and the word of truth remains to judge their memory. And we got a footnote saying, logic or reason, the logos of supreme power is God. This reason, this universal logic, enlightens all reasonable souls. It shines in the obscurities of doubt. It pierces, penetrates, rends the darkness of ignorance, and the darkness cannot apprehend, lay alone of, or imprison it. This reason speaks by the mouth of sages and has been summed up in one who is called, therefore, the Logos made flesh, or the great incarnate reason. The perfect word is divine unity expressed in human life. Orpheus may have been rent by Bacchantes, Socrates may have quaffed the poisoned cup, Jesus and his apostles have perished in the utmost tortures, John Hus, Jerome of Prague, and innumerable others have been burned. St. Bartholomew and the massacres of September may have had in turn their victims. Cossacks, Nauts, and Siberian deserts are still at the disposal of a Russian emperor. But the spirit of Orpheus, of Socrates, of Jesus, and of all martyrs will live forever in the midst of their dead prosecutors, will stand erect amidst decaying institutions and collapsing empires. It is this divine spirit, the spirit of the only Son of God, which St. John represents in his Apocalypse, standing between golden candlesticks, because he is the center of all lights, having 7 stars in his hand like the seed of a new heaven, and sending down his speech upon the earth under the symbol of a two-edged sword. When the wise in their discouragement sleep through the night of doubt, the Spirit of Christ is erect and vigilant. When the nations, weary of the labor which emancipates them, lie down and dream over their chains, the Spirit of Christ is erect and protesting. When the blind partisans of sterilized religion cast themselves in the dust of old temples, the Spirit of Christ is erect and praying. When the strong become weak, when virtues are corrupted, when all things bend and sink down in search of a shameful pasture, the Spirit of Christ is erect, gazing up to heaven and awaiting the honor of his Father. Christ signifies priest and king by excellence. The Christ initiator of modern times came to form new priests and new kings by science and, above all, by charity. The ancient Magi were priests and kings, and the Savior's advent was proclaimed to them by a star. And we got a footnote on that. Compare la science d'esprit. It has been said by Alfred de Vigny that legend is frequently truer than history because it is concerned with the genius of great men and nations, not with their acts, which are often incomplete and abortive. This fine thought applies above all to the gospel because it is no mere recital of what was, it is the sublime revelation of what is and shall always be. Ever will be the Savior of the world Ever will the Savior of the world be adorned by kings of intelligence, represented by the Magi. Ever will he multiply Eucharistic bread to nourish and comfort souls. Ever, when we call upon him in night and storm, will he come to us walking upon the water. Ever will he strengthen our weakness and restore light to our eyes. Ever will he appear to his faithful, luminous and transfigured upon Tabor, explaining the law of Moses and moderating the zeal of Elias. Okay, Chicano22 says, in the book Ancient Christian Magic by Marvin Myers, there is an invocation. Here it goes. O angels, archangels, who hold back the floodgates of heaven, who brings forth the light from the four. Then it continues with, O blood of my Christ, which was poured. This is 3rd century Coptic Christian magic. So sick, dude. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, dude. I mean, I personally, I think I love all aspects of this stuff. You know what I mean? And I'm not really one to throw out the baby with the bathwater. And I see a lot of that going on out here, especially in the more left-hand path, spooky demon circles. But I mean, I do see people who don't do that. And honestly, like, you know, those from my encounters with those people, they just seem to be the much better magicians. But hey, you know, I do know a couple who are just like full blown Satan who are still pretty dang good magicians, like really pretty dang good magicians who I've learned a lot from. So that's why I say at a certain point it really truly is do thou will. Um, but what unfortunately I see a lot of is people getting caught up in hype, people getting caught up in trends, people getting caught in the webs of influencers and reels and quick little tidbits of things that sound good if you don't know any better. And so that's why I'm doing my best over here to try to help people get a more rounded understanding of things. Okay, we're almost done. 63:36 on the minutes. This star was the magical pentagram, having a sacred letter at each point. It is the symbol of intelligence which rules by unity of force over the 4 elementary potencies. It is the pentagram of the Magi, the blazing star of the children of Hiram, the prototype of equilibrated light. Towards each of its points, a beam of light ascends, and from each beam goes forth. And from each a beam goes forth. It represents the grand and supreme Athenor of nature, which is the body of man. the magnetic influence issues in two rays from the head, from either hand and either foot. The positive ray is balanced by the negative. The head corresponds with the 2 feet. Each hand with a hand and foot, each of the 2 feet with the head and one hand. This ruling sign of equilibrated light represents the spirit of order and harmony. It is the sign of omnipotence of the magus, and hence, when broken or incorrectly drawn, it represents astral intoxication, abnormal and ill-regulated projections of astral light, and therefore bewitchments, perversity, madness, all that. In a word, which the Magi term the signature of Lucifer. There is another signature which also symbolizes the mysteries of light, namely the sign of Solomon, whose talismans bear on one side the impression of his seal, which we have given in our doctrine, and on the other the following signature, which is the hieroglyphic theory of the composition of magnets and represents the circulatory law of the lightning. And so that's this one we see here, which is pretty sick. There isn't, I've already looked, and there isn't really, this is one of those images in the book, though, that they don't say anything other than that it's just a seal of Solomon. Okay, rebellious spirits are enchained by the exhibition of the five-pointed blazing star, or the seal of Solomon, because each gives them proof of their folly and threatens them with a sovereign power capable of tormenting them by their recall to order. Nothing tortures the wicked so much as goodness. Nothing is more odious to madness than reason. But if an ignorant operator should make use of these signs without knowing them, he is like a blind man who discourses of light to the blind, an ass who would teach children to read. If the blind lead the blind, said the great and divine Hierophant, both fall into the pot. And now a final word to recapitulate this entire introduction. If you be blind like Samson, when you cast down the pillars of the temple, its ruins will crush you. To command nature, we must be above nature by resistance of her attractions. If your mind be perfectly free from all prejudice, superstition, and incredulity, you will rule spirits. If you do not obey blind forces, they will obey you. If you be wise like Solomon, you will perform the works of Solomon. If you be holy like Christ, you will accomplish the works of Christ. To direct the currents of the inconstant light, we must be established in the constant light. To command the elements, we must have overcome their hurricanes, their lightnings, their abysses, their tempests. In order to dare, we must know. In order to will, we must dare. We must will to possess empire, and to reign, we must be silent. Boom. Man, that intro is so good. All right. Well, I already yapped enough for this stream. I don't really have a whole lot to add other than that I'm really looking forward to more of this book. Looking forward to getting into now that we've gotten the preface and these two introductions out of the way, then getting into these first sections on Monday of Doctrine and Ritual, Theory and Practice. So tomorrow, Class B, we're going to hit the Dhammapada. Class B for Buddhism. That's how we're doing it this time around. I haven't read the Dhammapada. I picked it up like a couple months back, planning to read it, and I figure I might as well just hit it for the first time on this channel. It's fun to do some of these books for the first time on the channel, but it's also fun to revisit certain books on the channel. Either way, it's a good time. So I'm certainly looking forward to hitting that one up, because just about everybody said, Manley said it, Crowley said it, friends I have who have done the Dhammapada all say, oh yeah, that book is like Upanishad type of level of good. So that's where we'll be at tomorrow. Today we are Echo Fini with our starting parts of Éliphas Lévi's Transcendental Magic. Our cups are filled. We're filling the cups of those around us. And that's what's up. I appreciate you all so much. Thank you for the contributions to the chat from Chicano and Get Motivated. And Chicano asks, does Solomonic magic have ties with the Melchizedekian mysteries? Did he mention any footnotes on Melchizedekian, asking because the presentation of the Solomon sigil? That's something I don't know. But I would certainly be interested to find that out. Because from what I understand of Melchizedek and the priesthoods, that it would seem like there would certainly be an overlap. So I'll tell you what, I'm gonna look into that, and then you let me know what you find too, and we will reconvene if that sounds good to you. But yeah, I definitely don't know that one. Um, so I appreciate you bringing a question like that to my attention. I'm sure we'll find something pretty dope on it. I didn't notice anything so far, but maybe Levy does say something about it somewhere else in here. All right then, everybody. Well, that's gonna do it. I appreciate you all very much. Yay tapes. Hopefully you somehow stumble back upon this because well, you'll find out eventually. Maybe not this lifetime, huh? But that's okay. That's perfectly fine. That's how the game is meant to be played. So let's all head out and do our best to continue doing that. Until tomorrow, I wish you all a very wonderful Wednesday, or whenever you come across this, I just wish you a very wonderful time and place in your space. So much love, so many blessings. This has been Jay Baldea, and I will see you tomorrow. Bye bye.